Thank you, Nina and Wiki. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Tensions between nuclear-armed India and Pakistan have reached a dangerous new level. India has launched missile strikes inside Pakistan, saying they targeted militant infrastructure linked to a deadly attack on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir last month. Now, Pakistan is furious, reporting that at least 26 civilians were killed and vowing to retaliate. Pakistan have gone further, claiming to have shot down 12 Indian drones that violated their airspace.
Pakistan Armed Forces, being in a high state of alert and vigilance, have so far neutralized 12 Harap drones at various locations.
And the news starts now. Tensions between nuclear-armed India and Pakistan have reached a dangerous new level. India has launched missile strikes inside Pakistan, saying they targeted militant infrastructure linked to a deadly attack on tourists in Indian-administered Kashmir last month. Now, Pakistan is furious, reporting that at least 26 civilians were killed and vowing to retaliate.
Our intelligence monitoring of Pakistan-based terrorist modules indicated that further attacks against India were impending. There was thus a compulsion both to deter and to preempt. Earlier this morning, as you would be aware, India exercised its right to respond and preempt as well as deter more such cross-border attacks. These actions were measured, non-escalatory, proportionate, and responsible. They focused on dismantling the terrorist infrastructure and disabling terrorists likely to be sent across to India.
At 6 locations where the Indians attacked last night, unprovoked, the blatant aggression that they did, Pakistan has lost 26 civilians and 46 are injured. After they have released their weapons, only after that they were engaged and shot at. Once they have taken on the unprovoked, uncalled for aggression against the state, the territorial integrity, and the innocent people of Pakistan by firing at them through standoff weapons, only after that, Pakistan Air Force and these armed forces engaged them and took them down. Pakistan reserves the right and will respond to this aggression at a time, place and means of our own choice.
India is a cowardly enemy that believes it is powerful by targeting innocent people. But last night, we showed that, by the grace and mercy of God Almighty, Pakistan knows how to deliver a fitting response in its defense.
Pakistan have gone further, claiming to have shot down 12 Indian drones that violated their airspace, including near major cities like Karachi and Lahore.
Last night, that is the night of 7th and 8th May, India has undertaken yet another blatant military act of aggression against Pakistan by sending Harap drones at multiple locations. Pakistan Armed Forces, being in a high state of alert and vigilance, have so far neutralized 12 Harap drones at various locations.
Meanwhile, the situation is causing significant disruption with airports in northern India reportedly shutting down amid these escalating hostilities along the border with Pakistan. Tensions flared again in the West Philippine Sea, with the Philippines and China offering very different accounts of a recent maritime incident near the contested Scarborough Shoal. The Philippine military reported that a routine Navy patrol encountered aggressive and unsafe actions from 2 Chinese Navy ships earlier this week. However, China's military is painting a completely different picture. They're accusing the Philippine vessel of attempting to invade the waters around the shoal. They say they deployed their own naval and air forces to track and force the Philippine ship out. The Scarborough Shoal, a key and highly disputed area in the South China Sea, has long been a flashpoint for sovereignty and fishing rights issues. The Philippine military emphasized that such threatening and provocative conduct could lead to dangerous misunderstandings and destabilize the region. China claims almost the entire South China Sea, a claim that overlaps with the territories of several other Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines. Breaking election news out of Pasig City, the COMELEC 2nd Division has disqualified Christian de Guzman Sia from running for congressman. Now, this decision, in a 10-page resolution released today, cites violations of the poll body's anti-discrimination and fair campaigning guidelines. Take a look. The 2nd Division, chaired by Commissioner Ray E. Bulay, with Commissioners Nelson J. Celis and Noli R. People, found Sia liable for violating COMELEC resolutions 11116 and 11127, as well as Section 261 of the Omnibus Election Code. The disqualification stemmed from a petition filed by the COMELEC Task Force on Safeguarding Against Fear and Exclusion in Elections, or Task Force SAFE, headed by Director Sonia Bea Huy Lozada. They pointed to two separate instances where Sia made offensive remarks. The COMELEC resolution stated that Sia's public comments directed at solo parents were sexually suggestive, objectifying, and degrading. They also cited a campaign rally where Sia made comments about a female staff member's physical appearance. The COMELEC said these acts violated Section 261E of the Omnibus Election Code, which penalizes acts that harm a person's honor, and COMELEC Resolution 11116, which prohibits discriminatory and sexist language. Sia argued that COMELEC Resolution 11116 was unconstitutional, claiming the COMELEC's power is limited to election-related laws. Despite the disqualification, the COMELEC also said that if Sia wins the election, his proclamation will be suspended pending further appeals. He still has the option to appeal the decision to the COMELEC and Bank or the Supreme Court. The Commission on Elections and Bank has upheld the disqualification of the Pilipinas Babangon Muli or PBBM party list, affirming the earlier decision by its 2nd Division. The party list, which shares the acronym with President Marcos Jr., was found to have misrepresented itself as a regional party, representing Calabarzon while fielding nominees from outside the region, including Abra, Cagayan, and Quezon City. This misrepresentation violates the Party List System Act, or Republic Act number 7941, which requires regional parties to have nominees from their constituency. The COMELEC emphasized that the inclusion of nominees from outside Calabarzon contradicted the party list claim of regional representation, leading to the cancellation of its registration for the 2025 elections. Good news and a little bit of a reality check on the Philippine economy. The Philippine Statistics Authority reported today that our economy grew by 5.4% in the first 3 months of the year. Take a look. Now, that's actually a bit better than the last quarter of 2024 and even a touch higher than what some economists were expecting. The PSA says the biggest boost came from things like buying and selling goods, fixing cars and motorcycles, financial stuff, and manufacturing. Pretty much all the big parts of our economy saw some growth. Agriculture did okay, industry grew, and services were up too. Filipino spending money was a big factor, up by 5.3%. Government spending also saw a big jump. We also saw increases in businesses investing and in both our exports and imports. Overall, our gross national income, which includes income from abroad, grew even more at 7.5%. So while the 5.4% growth is positive, it's still a bit shy of the government's target for the whole year, which is between 6 and 8%. So some work still needs to be done to hit that goal. North Korea has launched multiple short-range ballistic missiles from its eastern coastal city of Wonsan, according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff. Now, the missiles, fired between 8:10 and 9:20 a.m. local time, traveled up to 800 kilometers before landing in the East Sea. Take a look. South Korean officials suggest the launches may have been tests of missile systems intended for export, possibly linked to North Korea's reported arms support to Russia amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine.
We are currently analyzing the background and intent behind these launches. However, it is assessed that the launch may have been to test the performance and flight stability of missiles intended for export.
Japan also detected the missile activity, noting that one projectile may have flown on an irregular trajectory. No damage has been reported, and none of the missiles entered Japan's exclusive economic zone.
これまでの弾道ミサイル等の度重なる発射も含め、一連の北朝鮮の行動は我が国の地域及び国際社会の平和と安全を脅かすものであります。また、このような弾道ミサイル発射は関連する安保理決議に違反し、国民の安全に関わる重大な問題であります。今回の発射については、我が国として北朝鮮に対し、北京の大使館ルートを通じて厳重に抗議し、強く非難したところでございます。
This marks North Korea's first ballistic missile test since March and the sixth such event this year. The launches comes amid heightened tensions and increased military collaboration between Pyongyang and Moscow. Recent intelligence reports indicate that North Korea has supplied short-range ballistic missiles and deployed troops to support Russia's efforts in Ukraine, claims both nations deny. South Korea, the United States, and Japan are closely monitoring the situation and sharing intelligence to assess the implications of these developments. In Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping have showcased their deepening alliance during the 80th anniversary of Victory Day, commemorating the defeat of Nazi Germany. President Putin expressed gratitude to Xi for attending the celebrations, emphasizing their united stance against what he termed neo-Nazism.
Esteemed Mr. Chairman, dear friend and Chinese friends, it is my great pleasure to greet all of you in Moscow. I am very happy about our new meeting. I do appreciate that, like on the previous Jubilee occasion, it was 10 years ago, you decided to visit us and share with us the celebration of the great victory over Nazi Germany in World War II, which is sacred for us. The combat brotherhood of our nations developed during those tough war years is one of the foundations of the contemporary Russian-Chinese relations of the overwhelming partnership and strategic cooperation. We develop our ties for the benefit of the peoples of both countries, not against anyone.
President Xi reinforced his sentiment, pledging solidarity with Russia against hegemonic bullying, a veiled reference to Western influence.
Facing the countercurrent of unilateralism and bullying internationally, China will work with Russia to shoulder the special responsibilities as world powers and permanent members of the UN Security Council to take on the responsibility. We should jointly promote the correct view of the history of World War II, safeguard the authority and status of the United Nations, resolutely defend the rights and interests of China, Russia, and the vast majority of developing countries, and work together to promote an equal, orderly, multipolar, and inclusive economic globalization.
The two leaders met in the Kremlin's opulent halls, referring to each other as dear friend, and are expected to issue a joint statement emphasizing their strategic partnership. The display of unity comes amid ongoing tensions with the West, particularly concerning the conflict in Ukraine, while Russia continues its military operations. China has maintained a position of neutrality, calling for peaceful resolutions. The Victory Day parade, featuring military displays and attended by over 24 foreign leaders, underscores the strengthening ties between Russia and China as they navigate the current geopolitical landscape. Meanwhile, Ukraine's major cities enjoyed a quiet night after a 3-day ceasefire declared by Russia came into effect today after a spate of drone and missile attacks. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned Russia's self-declared three-day ceasefire as a facade following reports of continued Russian attacks in Ukraine's northeastern Sumy region. Despite the truce, which began on May 8 to coincide with Russia's Victory Day celebrations, Ukrainian officials reported that Russian forces launched guided bomb attacks, resulting in civilian casualties. The Ukrainian Air Force noted no missile or drone activity as of 8 a.m. local time, but ground assaults persisted in eastern Ukraine. President Zelensky marked Ukraine's Day of Remembrance and victory over Nazism by walking through central Kiev, paying respects to fallen soldiers, and criticizing Russia's Victory Day parade as a distortion of history.
Good morning, dear Ukrainians. Today is the day of remembrance and victory over Nazism, a day that we celebrate together with the whole world, with all those who 80 years ago fought for life, so that evil would lose, so that never again. Unfortunately, 3 years ago it happened again, and just like before, the air raid siren roared over Kiev again. Together, fight decisively, with force, with pressure, on the battlefield, in the diplomatic arena, in the economic space, wherever possible, so that it truly is never again, or the world will have to conduct the denazification and demilitarization of Russia.
Russia is gearing up for a massive celebration, now marking 80 years since the victory over Nazi Germany. Tanks and troops will parade through Moscow's Red Square, and President Putin has invited some key world leaders. He even declared a three-day ceasefire with Ukraine around this time, including the day of the parade where reportedly Chinese President Xi Jinping is in attendance. There's also buzz about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un joining, but he sent a representative. Now, these two leaders are there alongside Putin. It would be a first ever official appearance together for the three. But what does this all mean? Take a look. While President Xi's attendance underscores the strengthening ties between China and Russia, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is notably absent. Instead, he has dispatched a top aide to represent North Korea at the event, highlighting the evolving dynamics of international alliances.
This is a very important holiday for Russians, what they call Victory Day on May 9th, because they, during World War II, faced an existential crisis with World War II. And so they reflect back on that as showing the resilience of the Russian state. It also was a time of cooperation between the Soviet Union and Western leaders.
North Korea's involvement in the Ukraine conflict has been significant, with reports indicating that approximately 600 North Korean soldiers have been killed while fighting alongside Russian forces.
I think that the participation by North Korea and China is important because it shows that Russia is escalating this conflict by bringing in out-of-region countries. North Korea does not have any dog in this fight. They're completely isolated from any impact of what's happening in Ukraine. So they're going out of area and creating an escalation by taking this war to Asia and creating ripple effects in the Northeast Asian region.
The presence of Chinese and North Korean representatives at the Victory Day parade sends a strong message to the international community, particularly the U.S. It signifies a consolidation of alliances that challenges Western influence and underscore the complexities of current geopolitical tensions.
It's true that China and Russia have a strategic partnership, and North Korea and Russia have a strategic partnership, and North Korea and China have a strategic partnership. But this doesn't equate an axis that's going to control the world, and that's because they all have their issues with each other. These three sets of bilateral pairs have their sources of instability. So I don't see them coalescing in this way to create a new world order. They certainly can create a lot of uncertainty and a lot of challenges. So the influx of we think now 13,000 North Korean troops to the Kursk front in Ukraine, in Russia rather, has been significant for Russia's efforts to retake some of that territory. And certainly North Korea has been providing ammunition and other kinds of military equipment that Russia's in desperate need of. So that's important. China's dual use support also has furthered the Russian war effort. So I think that they can reinforce the challenges that each one makes, but I don't think we're going to see some kind of axis that's going to control the world.
As the world watches Moscow's display of military prowess, the underlying messages of unity among these nations and their stance against Western policies are unmistakable. The parade not only commemorates a historical victory, but also reflects the current state of global alliances and tensions. President Trump claims China initiated the forthcoming trade talks, but he's not budging on the 145% tariffs imposed on Chinese goods. With negotiations set in Geneva, the global market is watching closely.
US President Donald Trump says he won't cut US tariffs on Chinese goods to get Beijing to the negotiating table. His comments Wednesday came ahead of Saturday's icebreaker trade talks between China and the US in Geneva. Until talks were announced this week, there had been no clear sign the world's top two economies wanted to defuse a trade war disrupting the global economy. And as tensions ratcheted up, Beijing has repeatedly said it wouldn't start talking with the US unless tariffs were suspended.
China says in order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
China's Commerce Ministry also claimed the US approached Beijing to start talking, but on Wednesday Trump seemed to suggest the opposite. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is considering exempting car seats, baby strollers, cribs, and other essential items for transporting children from the 145% tariffs in place on China. That's according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who testified before the House Financial Services Committee Wednesday. Trump sent mixed signals later. He told reporters he would look at specific industry requests for exemptions, but preferred to keep the duties broader and less complicated.
I want to make it nice and simple. I'm not looking to have so many exemptions that nobody knows what's doing. We have to make it very simple.
Late in the day, Trump also teased a major trade deal with representatives of a big and highly respected country that he'd announced Thursday. The New York Times reported shortly after that it was a deal with the UK, citing 3 people familiar with the plans. It would mark the first trade deal struck since Trump's self-styled Liberation Day, when he imposed tariffs on all countries in early April. A White House spokesperson declined to comment on the Times report.
In response to newly imposed U.S. tariffs, Ford has announced price increases of up to $2,000 on 3 vehicles manufactured in Mexico. The affected models, the Mustang Mach-E, Maverick, and Bronco Sport, will see the hikes applied to units built after May 2. Take a look.
Ford has hiked prices on 3 models made in Mexico, making it one of the first major automakers to act following Donald Trump's imposition of sweeping global tariffs. Maverick pickups and Bronco Sport SUVs are among the cars affected. They'll go up by as much as $2,000 per model. A company spokesperson said the increases were a usual mid-year adjustment, combined with some impact from tariffs. They said the company was not passing on the full cost of the levies to customers. Earlier this week, Ford said the trade war would cost it about $2.5 billion this year, though it's working to reduce that number. Rival General Motors said last week that it expected a hit of up to $5 billion. Trump's tariffs have unleashed chaos across the industry. Major brands in the US and Europe have pulled financial forecasts, shifted production, and shuttered plants. After weeks of pushback, Trump eventually took steps to soften the impact, easing duties on imports of car parts. However, he has not lifted the 25% tariff imposed on finished vehicles. Analysts have said US auto sales could drop by 1 million units a year if those levies stay in place. Ford is actually better placed than some rivals to weather the storm, thanks to its high rate of local production. The company assembles 79% of its US market vehicles at home, compared with just 53% for GM. Most other brands have so far refrained from increasing prices, though Germany's Porsche and Audi have both flagged likely increases.
To Madrid, Spain now, where authorities are investigating what they're calling a serious act of sabotage. Copper thieves brought the high-speed rail network to a standstill last Sunday, disrupting travel for thousands. Service is now resuming, but the disruption has left many reeling. Beverly Madrid reports from Spain.
In Madrid, Spain, where high-speed train services are finally resuming after a dramatic night of disruption that left thousands stranded. On Sunday evening, copper thieves targeted the rail network, stealing cables from 4 locations within a 10-kilometer stretch near Toledo. A move Spain's Transport Minister Oscar Puente called a serious act of sabotage in a post on X. The thefts brought trains between Madrid and Andalusia to a standstill, with 9 trains left stuck between stations and many passengers forced to spend the night on board.
My 6th trip to Spain, it's very efficient, and then all of a sudden the last 2 weeks, what's going on?
Estamos esperando desde las 9:30 o así y no nos han comunicado nada, no nos han dicho nada, así que tendremos que esperar.
In Atocha, crowds waited for hours, some still shaken after last week's nationwide blackout that caused a similar chaos. State rail operator ADEV says service is gradually returning to normal, but delays continue as crews work to replace the stolen cables. The high-speed network, a symbol of Spain's push to decarbonize public transport, connects nearly all major cities but remains vulnerable to theft because it crosses remote countryside. The timing couldn't have been worse. This happened just as Madrid's long weekend ended and before Seville's big Feria festival. Authorities have launched an investigation, and the president of Andalusia is demanding immediate solutions for affected travelers. For now, the mood here is a mix of relief and frustrations as Spain's prized high-speed rail system gets back on track. Reporting from Spain, this is Beverly Madrid for NET25 World News. Back to you, Alma.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. What a nail-biter in Boston last night. Jalen Brunson came up clutch for the New York Knicks, sinking 2 free throws with just 12.7 seconds left on the clock to steal a 91-90 victory over the Celtics. Take a look. The Knicks stole a dramatic 91-90 win in Boston last night, taking a 2-0 series lead. Jalen Brunson hit the game-winning free throws with seconds left after Knicks rallied from a 20-point third-quarter deficit. Josh Hart led New York with 23 points, while Karl Anthony Towns added 21 and 17 rebounds. Brunson finished with 17 and 7 assists. Despite 20 points each from Derek White and Jaylen Brown, the Celtics couldn't close it out, with Michael Bridges sealing the Knicks' victory by stripping Jason Tatum late. The Celtics struggled with three-point shooting for the second straight game. Game 3 is Saturday in New York.
And that's the playoffs. You got to keep fighting. Every possession matters, and you got to play all 48 minutes. And so we started slowly, got in a big hole, dug our way out, and then guys made a lot of tough plays. They were at their best when their best was needed down the stretch.
You know, when you're not making shots, you got to find ways to impact the game in a positive way. And, you know, that could be an offensive rebound, kick out for another opportunity, a defensive steal to get you out in transition and on the break and get an easy bucket.
Just had the ability to make plays tonight, and we didn't. Me, Jason, Derek, we got a lot of great looks, and we just got to convert. You know, we got to make plays. We just didn't make plays tonight.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.